into disrepair. We're finally getting started on the Mustang.
Finally. A little bit of backstory on this car. My dad used to work on this car for his friend Kevin. He would bring the car to my dad, and my dad would service it from time to time. Kevin passed away several years ago, and his widow, Kim, had the car. Through a series of unfortunate events, like, for example, a refrigerator fell on it.
Yeah.
Over time, she decided that she knew she couldn't take care of it anymore. So she called my dad, and my dad gave the number to me, and that's how I ended up with the car. And that's where we pick it up from the storage container and start the process of bringing this car back.
Brakes on it because it didn't have brakes.
Just picked it up, 1967 Fastback. It's kind of loud, but driving her home, 4-speed, 289. Now this is originally a 1967 Mustang Fastback. It came in a dark green color. Was an original 289 4-speed car. It's got drum brakes, no power steering, didn't have air conditioning or any of those options. Over the years, this car has been through several hands. As a matter of fact, 2 of my personal friends had owned this car prior to Kevin buying it. I found that out later after I purchased the car. So it's really been around town for a while. Fortunately, it never got damaged to the point that it ended up in a junkyard. And that's where we're going to save this car and turn it back into something special. You'll see I'm doing a lot of upgrades on it. I'm going to make this car a much more drivable car. So you'll see some things that I'll do to this car that you might want to do to your own. The biggest hurdle is the quarter panels. Those have to be fixed before we move on to the next step. So things are moving along. You know, I don't know how long it's going to take. I feel like I've got a lot of time that I got to spend on this thing, but wish me luck. The intent for this Mustang is to be a daily driver or that sort of thing, not a show car. So I am going to do some things. You know, it's going to have some of the stuff it's not a frame off. We're going to paint it, make it look nice. We're going to fix everything cosmetically, make everything mechanical work, but I'm not going to tear this car completely down to nothing and start over. It's going to be basically what you could do in your own garage. Maybe this car's a little rougher than you want to find if you're going to start, but it's a doable project. So I'm excited to get there. My wife is excited. She has been waiting patiently for me to get here. I will get her out here to work on this, I promise. What you doing?
Oh, open the door. What's that first? Are we
We're just going through and discovering all those things you find when you start working on an old car. Let me show you some of these great things. So I know it's got some front end damage. It had washers stacked up on the apron right here. You can see how wrinkly that is. You know, any old Mustang you're gonna buy is gonna have things that just show up. One of the things, I always think it's interesting, they always drilled that hole, put that hole so they could grease the upper control arm. You can see that hole there. That's not supposed to be there, so obviously got to fix that too. So we got some structural repairs. We got a few things to do. You know, overall it's a pretty solid car, and it is a 67 Fastback, so, you know, obviously worth fixing. There's always some undiscovered things on old cars, so like look for stuff like this where you've got this little rust spot. You need to fix this before you prime. The first step to any good paint job is to really reveal what's underneath the paint. If you've got factory paint, I wouldn't suggest removing it all. I mean, it's stuck down. It's a good bonded paint. In this case, this car had like the cheapest Mako paint job you could get. It didn't even have hardly any primer on it. It was probably lacquer based. I have been pleasantly surprised that when I strip it, it actually doesn't have hardly any rust. So this car's pretty good. I usually strip this with a multitude of tools. Use like different, you know, I've got a little mini sander. It's from Harbor Freight. I got like a 3M orbital. Put some 80 grit on there. I got these little, you know, paint remover wheels. They go in a drill. You know, you can use a wire brush. I just use a multitude of tools to clean this stuff up and get it down to its bare metal. Once you get it in bare metal, the next step is I epoxy primer it. I use the Shopline brand of epoxy paint. It's JP 375. It's gray. It goes down really nice. I use a 1.8 tip on it, and it lays out pretty good. Now, one of the interesting things about this car is there's really no primer on it. Look at that. I mean, they spot primed it just around some areas, but for the most part, there's almost nothing. It's just bare metal. So we're getting it down pretty easily. The paint, I think it's like one of those Mako paint jobs where they just put a single coat on there. It's definitely single stage. So it's paint stripper. If you guys didn't know this, they changed the formula last few years, and it doesn't have as much kick as it used to. But on this paint, it is working. So I put a little bit on there, I work an area, and then I come back around, and then at the end of it, we're gonna sand it with 80 grit and get this thing all prepped, ready for some epoxy primer for our first step. Well, I have been making progress on the Mustang, although it's slow. I did get this fender stripped, and all the holes all welded up on it. It's pretty good. But this fender, you can see that whole corner over here is all rust. It's like the whole thing is gone. So I got to take that whole corner. It has a terrible patch, had a bunch of Bondo in there. So we're gonna take that, cut that out, make a new piece. We're gonna clean this car up. We're gonna get rid of all these molding holes. I'm not putting the Mustang stuff back on the fender. I'm cleaning that up. So there's a bunch of holes. Every letter has 2 holes for it, unbelievably. We'll weld all that up, but really the big problem is this area right here. I'll show you well, that's not good. This is the kind of nonsense you'll find underneath Bondo on these old cars. Look, it wasn't even welded along the bottom edge, just lapped over. It had some welding here, a little bit there, but like they missed the whole, they didn't even make the patch big enough to cover all the Bondo. I mean, all the rust. Stripping the fenders, and I finally got them down, and I got that rust hole fixed. So I welded in a new patch right in here. So that's fixed, and then I welded up all the holes. I spared you the details of how I did it. I just cut the old piece out and welded a new one in with my MIG welder. So looks pretty good. I'm gonna put some epoxy primer on these so they won't flash rust or anything, and then go to the next step. If you own an early Mustang, you know the sound systems on those cars originally were horrible, like horrendous. They had one speaker in the dash. If you're lucky, you got a couple in the door panels. Only AM, FM maybe. You know, it's modern times, guys. So really want to have your tunes going. One of the things, they don't give you a lot of provisions for speakers, and people just butcher these cars trying to put speakers in them. You purists may want to look away. They had butchered this with a tin snips and like peeled all that back. On these early Mustangs, I buy a stainless dog bowl. Well, first of all, I find a speaker I like these Maximo 6.5s. These are really, really good speakers. Crutchfield sells them. They're like amazing speakers for the money. $100, right? You get a dog bowl that matches the general dimensions. I go in there and I cut a hole, and that makes this a recess for the speaker. So on the inside of the car, you'll have your speaker recess. I'll try to get in there and show you. Okay, so after everything's done, the outside of the car is all painted. Really all you got to do is mount your speaker on the inside, cut a hole in your kick panel. And the reason I like the recessed speaker rather than buying those speakers that are built into the kick panels is they don't stick into your foot box. I mean, I got a manual transmission car with a clutch pedal. You really need the foot room. So I like doing this. I've done this on most every Mustang I've done. I mean, I think it's a great fix. If you've ever worked on early Mustangs, you know that there's these lead lines. They put lead on the seams, like at the places where the roof to pillars match, the B pillar back here. They've got a really, really extensive lead line right here. Really a lot of lead. I don't really like using lead. I mean, it's a nasty product for me. I feel like it's not only is it toxic, it also always shows. It always shrinks back. You can always see a lead line. So what I did when I did my quarter panels, I came in here and I made a nice little piece that matches the shape of it. I continuously welded it in. Now, you can see it's kind of lumpy. You want to dot this in. You don't want to just go in here and burn that in. You'll warp it. So I come in and do a dot at a time, nice and slow. You know, ugly welds, that's why they make grinders. So I've kind of roughed in the roof. What you want to do now is I went in and I blew this off and cleaned it really good. Got all the little pinholes, because every kind of Bondo you spread, it just seems like you always have a little bit of pinholes in them. So blow all those pinholes out. Make sure you get rid of all that dust. And then I'm going to take a nice clean microfiber towel. I'll wipe it down, and then I'll put some wax and grease remover on it and wipe it again. And then let that thoroughly dry so everything nice surface to start putting the other filler on. You don't want to stack regular Bondo really thick. If you've got a spot that's a little too deep, you want to use something that's like a fiberglass reinforced filler just for strength, because that's where you'll get cracks. When you see cracks in Bondo, it's usually because somebody overfilled. In my case, you know, there was this area here. It was kind of wavy, just didn't feel very good. So I put some Dynaglass over it a couple times, just a couple like thin spreads, and then I sanded it off. Now I'm going to come across with my my 3M Platinum Plus and just and make a nice spread on here and straighten it up, and then we'll be ready for calling this finished. You can see every once in a while you'll find these little spots that look like, maybe you can see it. There's a little primer left, right there. That's a hail dent, just like over here. There's a little spot. There it is, right there. Those are hail dents. They'll show up like that when you start sanding. This car has a little bit of hail. Not too bad. I'd rather deal with hail damage than rust, honestly. And any car that's been in Texas for very long has probably gotten involved in a hailstorm. We'll do that next and get this thing ready. Maybe get this half of the roof ready, and then I'll move to the other side. I finished roughing in all the bodywork, and it's really hard for me to sand and hold a camera at the same time, so I didn't show you that. But once I finished that, I applied 2 really heavy coats of 4-to-1 Evercoat Super Build. I really like that product to start blocking these things out and getting them really straight. Okay, so we're at a critical point here. I primed the car, but we needed to pick a color. So I've been on, you know, Steve McQueen Team Bullet. And
I'm Queen Eleanor.
Easy way or the hard way, Range. Easy way or the hard way.
Yeah, so I was on the internet looking for a color that I liked, and I found one, and I was out and about one day, and I actually ran into a car that I saw that I liked, and I was like, that's the one. And it happens to be that Daniel saw the same car, and so we agreed that was the color.
Yeah, so I did a test panel, and you can check it out. So I just laid down the first coat of base. You can see it's kind of, I got the doors open so you can kind of see the color. It's, I don't know, I describe it as like almost copper. It looks like a copper color. So, you know, obviously this is the old deck lid. It's a little rusty deck lid. I'm just using it as a test bed to see how this paint looks, but you can kind of see the color, and I don't know. We'll see, we'll lay 2 to 3 coats of the base layer down just to see what it looks like. make sure there's nothing showing through, make sure it's obscured the old paint. And then we're gonna do the tint coat. Now, the tint coat is really the, what you'd call the money shot here. Okay, it's kind of a big day because I just painted my first test panel for the Mustang. Nisha has not seen the color yet, but I think she's gonna like it. What do you think?
Oh man, I love it. I think it's pretty. I think it's gonna be really pretty. I
Like
like
that?
it.
Like it? 2 thumbs up?
I like it. I think it's gonna be really pretty. This is the darker side. This is
Yeah, I did 4 coats on one and 3 on the other.
You know, I kind of like the 3. Yeah, I think I like the 3. I really like the 3. Okay, now that we have the color picked out, stay tuned for part 2.
Thanks for watching.
And like and subscribe.
Welcome to this episode of Disrepair. Today, we're taking this Explorer engine and we're gonna make it a Mustang engine. This engine looks really clean inside, which is great. I did find something a little disturbing, so. All right, bad news. I'll show you something we just found. So right there, you're seeing the top of the pistons broke off. Well, turns out the Explorer engine was a bust. Now we get to explore how to build a new engine.